A couple months ago, one of the best journalists on the planet, who also happens to be a YouTuber, got his house firebombed due to his investigations into a large network of corruption in Australia. I really do mean those words earnestly. Journalism is in such a poor spot right now. Modern journalism has about as much respect as the bronies did during the early 2010s. You remember that community of adults that used to jerk off to My Little Pony? In fact, I would argue that people have more respect for them than a lot of journalists these days, and rightfully so. It's an industry that thrives off of just feeding shit into the mouths of everyone that happens to come across their headlines. They're either writing meaningless articles, not focusing on anything important, writing blatant lies about shit, or just generating their own controversies to farm rage bait clicks from people just to drive traffic to their site. I'm sure you're tired of me whining about this one example I'm about to use because I've used it like 20 fucking times now, but I just think it's perfect to encapsulate what I'm talking about. There is an article Kotaku published proudly where it was all about the author mishearing a lyric in a Super Smash Bros. Song and thinking they heard a slur, so they wrote a whole article attacking Nintendo for it and demanding an apology and a response. Like, that is just the perfect example for what I'm talking about. I'm already getting lost in the sauce talking about this again and ranting. The reason I'm even mentioning it is because Friendly Jordies does real, meaningful journalism. One of the very few in the field that does. He's a political commentator, a YouTuber, and a comedian, and he combines all of these into extremely hard-hitting investigations into corruption in the government, and he presents all of the information factually, with sources, with evidence, and delivers it in extremely entertaining ways. So it's palatable to anyone, even if you're not in Australia, it gets you educated and it entertains you. It is just the perfect blend of everything you could ever want from a journalist, really. And for all of his hard work, his life gets threatened. He is doing all of this at great personal risk to his own safety. His fucking house got firebombed, and the list of suspects that it could be is super long. He came back recently after a 2-month break on YouTube to update everyone on what's going on with that whole situation, and he laid out the entire timeline of events for all of the enemies he's made that could have been responsible for this firebomb attack on his house. This attempt on his life could have been made by a lot of very powerful people that Jordies has exposed and dropped very important information on over the years, and I highly, highly recommend watching his entire video going over all of it. Of course, the link is going to be in the description below. I'd like to briefly give you a summation of some of the possible suspects here in this little murder mystery whodunit. He compared this whole situation to Knives Out, and he's absolutely right. This is a wild web of fucking supervillains that are after him, potentially. He's got like the entire fucking Naruto Akatsuki hunting him down. And by far the biggest clown, but also the biggest, most powerful person in that group is John Barilaro, the former Deputy Premier of New South Wales, whom has come after Jordies many times and even cites Jordies as the reason he stepped down from his position, the most powerful position in New South Wales, because of their YouTube beef and Jordies' content insulting him and exposing him. John Barilaro has some very scary connections that could have been used here that led to this whole situation, and Friendly Jordies does highlight all of these possibilities. But of course, he's far from the only one. Jordies has exposed corruption at every level, so the list of enemies is longer than the terms of service to signing up to iTunes. But I would like to highlight 2 others. One of them is an extremely powerful gambling company that Jordies has talked about and dropped very important information regarding. And another one is an organized crime ring. I'm not going to go too in-depth on those 2 yet. I highly recommend you watch Jordies' video talking about why these are very possible suspects in this firebombing on his residence. But I would like to show you a few clips from the video, mainly ones that are poking fun at John Barilaro, going over the history between the two, and just kind of pointing and laughing at this absolute goober. But it is a very serious situation, and somehow Jordies has unbreakable, indomitable spirit and will. Because even though his life has been threatened, and keep in mind, that firebombing, it was twice. At first, they firebombed his neighbor thinking it was his house, but when they realized it wasn't his house, they came back and fucking firebombed him again. So, his life, very real danger, and he still is making the decision to stay and fight against corruption. There is nothing more admirable or brave. Like, he is exactly what journalists should aspire to be. and he still somehow delivers content that is so entertaining and so good. I don't know how he does it without just like chewing on his fucking fingernails in fear every day. Absolute goddamn Australian hero.
In what I now know was a premeditated attack that at best was intended to terrify me and at worst was intended to kill me.
I would say it was probably intended to kill you. Like, throwing a firebomb at the house and actually setting the house on fire is less of like an intimidation tactic and more of an attempted murder, I would say. But I feel like in his position, he's got to be very careful with the words he chooses because he's constantly in the crosshairs of every single authority in Australia because he exposes so much corruption. But yeah, this is very much a step above an intimidation tactic. An intimidation tactic is if you had like someone come to your house dressed as a construction worker, but then it was actually a lawyer serving you like a fucking lawsuit. That's an intimidation tactic. This is some like hitman shit.
The night that happened, I was supposed to be sleeping here. I didn't even have smoke alarms, so there's a very good chance that if I was, I could have ended up like the content you're watching right now. Fire. But I wasn't here because that week I was performing my live show in Melbourne and I forgot my keys while I was down there. So there, criminals outwitted. It reminds me of that quote.
He's 2 steps ahead.
Doing, then the enemy certainly can't anticipate our future actions. So I was sleeping somewhere else that night.
That's such a beautiful line too. That's always the cliche on how they beat like an overpowered villain in an anime or some shit who can see into the future. We'll have no plan and we'll wing it. Unpredictability is our best friend.
Here, and it is too big of a jump to go from beating a cameraman in public to firebombing a house.
That is a big jump, but you're also giving him a lot of credit here with beating a cameraman. This cameraman is fending off this overgrown baby with ease. Like, this is pretty sad for John Barilaro here. It's like that, like an older brother putting their hand on the head of the younger brother as he's throwing punches that are missing. And he's holding like a 30-pound camera on his shoulder.
John Barilaro had this palatial multi-million-dollar estate that he Airbnb'd as a side hustle to his other gig, being the leader of a state. This is the dumbest thing you could do, right? Like, especially since the other half of the time, it's not Airbnb, that's where he lives. So we thought, wouldn't it be good if we film a video on the history of all the shitty things he's done, but film it at that Airbnb?
Because as you probably gathered, or haven't because you're that dumb, I'm filming at your estate. And I want you to be the first to know that I f***ed in both your guest houses.
Oh, Stooge, we tracked the video. It's coming from inside the
I don't know
house.
if that's true or not, but that's such a fucking flex. This guy actually sounds unbelievably stupid. Like, legitimately, observably stupid. I am believing 100% that his feelings got hurt because Friendly Jordies made fun of him, and he probably cried. Like, he actually probably did cry and then resign. That's crazy. They came on his pillows. Yeah, maybe. I mean, again, I wasn't there to watch him have sex and pound cheeks at John Barilaro's Airbnb or anything. I'm just going to take his word for it. And even if he didn't, he planted the seed of doubt in his head forever now. The guy that makes fun of him also fucked in his beds. So either way, that's a W.
John was demanding the police conduct a bug sweep of the property. Something that would cost the taxpayers $10 billion.
And a blacklight,
Despite
please.
the fact we
We need to know if he
almost
actually
that
fucked
much
here.
to stay at the property. Just imagine how stupid and entitled it is to be Deputy Premier and lease one of your primary residences out to anyone. I never considered doing this before, but say a property developer wants a favour, they could very easily get material to blackmail you.
Hey, I want to pop in here real quick once again to drive home the absolute insanity of this situation. John Barilaro, the most powerful man in New South Wales, was listing his actual primary estate as an Airbnb when he wasn't staying there. That is levels of stupid that not even Saints Row was able to tickle. John Barilaro has the brain of a child still struggling to fit a square into a square hole. I don't know what could have even led to him believing that was a decent idea at all. Like, maybe it's 30, 40 years of eating paint chips and boofing asbestos. Like, I don't know. Like, how he could have thought in his position that listing his actual residency as an Airbnb was smart. As Jordy's does list, there was a lot worse shit that could have come from this. Shit could have been planted in his estate that would have got him in huge legal trouble. Blackmail. It could have been bugged. Like, there was so much that could have happened here because he lists it as a fucking Airbnb. Honestly, John's lucky Jordy's was the one to do this because it could have been so much worse. He got off easy by the only thing scandalous happening in his estate was Jordy's slamming Ham in his bed. Like, he could have found himself in much, much, much bigger trouble.
In another video, I called Barillaro up and attempted to ask him about allegations surrounding him and extramarital affairs.
Turns out, John's intimate relationships would eventually come under
Oh,
scrutiny
no.
in a hearing concerning his boss's intimate
John.
relationships, but that's a story for another day.
I didn't know this at the time, but these videos caused John's office to contact the New South Wales Police Force just days after their release, specifically the Counter-Terrorism and Special Tactics Command.
God,
New South-
what a flex. You grilled a man's cheeks so hard that he called in the Counter-Terrorism and Special Tactics Command. Fucking Jack Bauer had to be put on your case because you bullied this guy's feelings so hard. Jesus Christ. Now I think he fucked someone that's not his wife. Now, I mean, I know nothing about him or the case, but now because he called in fucking CTU, the Counterterrorism Unit, now I think he absolutely cheated on his wife. He went too hard to prove he didn't. Now I feel like he's covering something up. You see, you gotta, there's a fine line between, like, a proper response and an overkill. And when you reach overkill, you're basically already guilty. Oh, no, John.
The defamation lawyers draft up this absolutely
He's a prime
schizophrenic
messiah.
letter detailing all of John's grievances with the videos I made, including that I called him a greasy little scrotum. He needed
That
to
was
clear
too
the
far.
record on that one. Let everyone know that's not true. Go by, and they were pretty quiet. Unbeknownst
Seeing
to us,
insults
the
in
police
writing
hearing
on a
him
legal
be
document is
surveilling us
crazy.
On behalf of a guy that we exposed and made fun of.
Oh no.
So we've been served. And what they gave us, in my honest opinion, is another whiny crock of shit. That was.
Does
not
he
only
actually have to...
riddled with-
So he's been sued a million fucking times. Does he actually ever have to even defend himself, or does it get thrown out pretty quickly? Because this man has collected more lawsuits than I have Pokemon cards at this point. From the feelings he's hurt. Yeah, he's had to defend a few times. Okay. Because, like, I've seen the sheer number of them, and it is overwhelming. But I also know quite a few of them get thrown out. Like, even in the description of this one is being thrown out. So I was just wondering if he ever even had to actually go defend himself, or if they eventually just drop it.
Then on the 4th of June 2021, my producer Christo was walking back from uni.
Oh,
He was already
I know
planning
this
on
one.
meeting our lawyer Mark that day, so he had the document.
Yeah, this was a big clip when it came out.
They're giving away evidence and trying to run away with it. Yeah?
What's happening? They're just fighting him.
Run off with evidence. Okay? Who are you doing this? You're out with... Jesus Christ.
Film this. Make
What
sure
the
you don't film it. This is bizarre.
This is not Australia.
Yeah, it's Mark Davis.
Christo was arrested by the Terror Police, specifically the Fixated Persons Unit, charged with 4 counts of stalking and intimidation. So we're now facing criminal charges and a defamation suit.
The guy looks like he got... Well, I mean, in defense of John Barilaro, he literally did kind of get cucked by extension. Because this fucking idiot put his personal residence up as an Airbnb, so Friendly Jordies went and had sex there. Like, his estate got cucked. So of course he's going to be sad forever. I'll briefly give a little context here. Jordy's producer got arrested on completely bogus dog shit by the goddamn fucking counter-terrorist unit, like super soldiers meant to actually go after like terrorists and shit, all over fucking hurt feelings, and Jordy's and his team exposing corruption. It's an absolute affront to God. It is just downright wrong and fucked up what happened to Jordy's, his team, and everyone involved here. And that clip you saw is only a brief section of that whole arrest, which was brutal. Like, they roughed him up for no reason. Like, all of it is just foul.
They end up withdrawing the application and paying both Christo and my legal costs of over $20,000.
Hey,
But Christo's
attaboy.
criminal charges still hang over him, and my defo case is still ongoing. During this time, Barilaro also decided to publicly announce his intention to resign from politics, basically saying, I forced him to resign.
The defamation case definitely playing a big part of this.
God, that's
I
so
don't know how
good.
many of you can endure what I've endured on online. I feel for young men and women, young boys and girls that get bullied on social media. I feel for them because as a
Bro, you are literally the most powerful person in the region, and you're crying about YouTubers making fun of you so much that you're quitting your job. That is the weakest, softest shit of all time. Actual 14-year-olds get bullied harder than you do, and you know what they do? Continue on and move forward. You're the fucking most powerful politician in the region, and you curl up into the little fetal position suckling your thumb because a YouTuber called you a greasy scrotum. That is wild. That is fucking wild. Holy shit. You know what? I actually don't even think it's the mean words that Jordy says against him. I really think when Jordy's fucked at his house because this stupid idiot put his Airbnb or his actual home up for the Airbnb, I think that's what broke him. I think that, like, actually broke his whole soul. I think that was just, like, this big eureka moment where it's like, wow, I'm a fucking idiot. And he couldn't handle the realization. Like, the self-reflection was too much. Overwhelming.
So my legal team launches an application
shit,
to
that's
strike out
Galaxy
that
Brain.
claim, opposed again by Barilaro, who fights tooth and nail to keep that claim in and keep his special protections that prevent his own words from being examined in court. And guess what? We lose. The judge rules that it would be more unfair to deprive Barilaro of the right to vindicate his reputation
What?
as a cat
What is that
than to
stance?
make it impossible
That's just
for me
blatant
to
corruption.
defend myself. So I'm basically stuck in
That needs to be highly scrutinized ASAP. That is so wild. Holy shit. Imagine still being bound by a 1700s ruling to protect a politician from saying something stupid in Parliament. He literally said he can defend himself, but not you. I know.
In late December of 2021, I released a video detailing that I had found an Ashley Madison account linked to John Barilaro's email address and personal details. You know the website that had the slogan,
That's so
"Life
good.
is short, have an affair." It was hacked a few years ago. I
Yes.
swear to God.
That was
as with
huge.
The rest of this saga, you couldn't make this up.
That I can't wait for the reveal, but I just have to once again chime on that. With that Ashley Madison hack, I don't know how many of you remember that. That caused like actual hysteria for maybe like a week. Like on Facebook, like the old gentlemen, they were breaking down like, how could this have happened? The internet is a secure place. My life is ruined. I can't believe it. Like absolutely having this nuclear meltdown because all of their shit was now exposed. It was amazing. It was fucking amazing. Ashley Madison was a place where married men went for cheating on their wife or something. That was the whole shtick. That was the whole basis of the site.
Him because when cameramen went to film him one night regarding this scandal, this happened.
I wonder if that was the woman he met on Ashley Madison or if it was his wife. There's really no telling. Oh, this is the cameraman.
It was a
Hey,
long
come on now.
and
Please. The cameraman wins this. John took the most damage. John was the one that hit the blast zone here. Cameraman's got 30 pounds of fucking iron on him. And he is still just manhandling John with one arm.
couldn't work for a while, so we're now using our legal fund to pay for a legal action against John Barilaro on behalf of the camera.
Let's go.
Just a quick
That's so
update.
good.
Days ago, John's charges were dropped
Oh.
on the grounds of mental health.
How? How is that an excuse? Wait, what? Does that work in Australia? So let's say assault and battery, whatever. Like you show evidence like, hey, this is really taking a toll on my mental health. Like I'm really stressed about this, and then be like, oh my god, we're so fucking sorry. Holy shit. Okay, we'll drop the case, please. Take all the time you need to recover from the, the mental burden of this whole ordeal. Oh my god, wow. Is that just like something you can actually do? Like, obviously assault charges are going to be mentally draining, even to, well, especially to the super sensitive goofball Barolaro. But is that a real defense? Like, my mental health is suffering from this, please drop it. And they'll be like, oh, yes. Well, now that you've said that. It's like in Pirates of the Caribbean with parlay. If you shout parlay, they just have to stop everything. No, not a thing. He's just super corrupt. Okay, thank God. I'm happy to hear that. Well, I mean, I'm not happy to hear about the corruption, but I'm glad to hear this isn't like a real tactic you can employ.
Executive Director of large Sydney property development company Coronation Property Co. In August last year, we released an investigation into this developer, which detailed never before published links between them and one of the most violent crime organisations in all of Australian history, the Alameddine crime family, who are in no way suspects in the firebombing. No, not them. I'm sure they all have very credible alibis.
Wow, that's
we
terrifying.
Revealed that Andy DeHaas, the now former enough for Clubs New South Wales to bring a private prosecution against Troy and I. So now I've made even more enemies. The gambling lobby and anyone that would use them to launder money. And Clubs New South Wales rejected him. By the way, this came out on the same day John was saying in court that he was too mentally ill to face his assault charges, but well enough to run Clubs New South Wales, one of the most scrutinised jobs in the country right now.
Well, the thing is, like, assault charges are a scary thing. That's like a mental ewy. Like, that's yucky. Like, that doesn't make me feel good. But being in charge of a massive gambling company, that's a yippee kind of feeling. Like, that's two very different sides of, like, the mental spectrum here. So I can totally understand him not wanting to go to court to face the assault charges. That is very stressful. This is pleasure. This is fun. So I get it. I get it, John.
To have me thrown in jail, the 7th richest man in Australia threatening to sue me, numerous other property developers are dodgy bears. I have a longer enemies list than Richard Nixon, so despite having my suspicions, I'm still not completely sure as to who done it. But enough of listing enemies, it's now time for my friends list. First of all, sorry to my neighbours and landlord, and future apology to whoever finds my corpse. It's going to be messy. I'm not going down without a fight. Big thank you, boy.
That's like actually fucking terrifying. Like, he's making light of it, but the enemies that he has listed here are actually fucking horrifying. Like, I can't believe he's still staying in Australia, honestly. I really can't. So, for those that don't remember the situation, I'll quickly let you know. His house got firebombed, but it was actually the second attempt. So they initially firebombed his fucking neighbors, thinking it was his house. And then when they realized it wasn't his house that they fucking firebombed, they came back to try and finish the job. And like he mentioned, the house didn't even have smoke alarms, so like he literally probably would have just died if he was actually home at the time. Because it would have been when he was asleep. And the enemies he's listed here and their connections are very serious. I don't know how he's sitting here and being like okay about it and lucid. What a man's man. The problem as well is people who hear real journalism but don't like the message and reject it. See, like, I don't really subscribe to that belief, because if you look at some of, like, the real journalists that do great work like Jordy's, they are very well received by actual people, not politicians and not the elite. Like, that's how you know it's the sign of, like, good journalism. I never really see pushback when you're met with, like, a real journalist.